Social anxiety college students, stunning goddesses to fall in love with. Is the captivating tomb raiding plot right in front of us? What kind of power will the long-awaited battle suit bring to him? In the new world, surprises, accidents, and dangers coexist. How does he want to live in this life? Chapter 1. Python can't eat anyways. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Good kid, keep it hidden. Chen, teach me 2 moves. I usually pretend to be quite pure. From the moment she stepped into the school gate, Su Chen noticed that everyone was staring at him with a wicked smile on their faces. He was almost late and had no time to attend, so he rushed straight to the classroom. As soon as Ku stepped into the classroom door, several good classmates gathered around him and said something he didn't understand. Su Chen scratched her head and glanced at them like looking at ZZ, then walked over to her seat and sat down. What are these grandsons talking about? Su Chen was very puzzled. Still dressed up, the school flowers rushed into the broadcasting room and confessed to you in front of all the teachers and students. Say, who sent you to confuse the school flower? Su Chen's neck was locked by a huge arm, making him unable to catch his breath. A voice could be heard from behind that resembled that of Grandma Rome. Wait, is it Su Chen or Su Cheng? Su Chen's words were like thunder, and everyone stopped moving and speaking, looking at each other. Su Cheng is the captain of the basketball team from the neighboring school, with a height of 1.89 meters. Let go of the labor management's neck. Su Chen shook off her giant arm and rubbed her neck, coughing a few times. Su Chen, a junior student who was admitted to the provincial capital city university from a small county town, is a social anxiety male with glasses. She has a single mother and fetus and enjoys masturbating, watching tomb raiding dramas, and watching school flowers. It is obvious that no school flower will confess his love to him. Su Chen. A gentle voice breaks the deadlock. Did you hear everything I said in the broadcast room? There was another moment of silence, and everyone opened their mouths and looked at the door, then turned back to look at Su Chen. Make sure their eyes are facing each other. What are you waiting for? Go ahead. Someone started to coax. Su Chen felt a strong push on her shoulder. Go up. Su Chen. Labor and management have come to catch us on the road, why don't you get on? Zhang Jingzha's screen went black and he turned around to glare at Su Chen sitting next to him. Sure enough, he fell asleep again. Su Chen has been sleeping a lot lately and falls asleep without paying attention. You're still laughing, you've tricked me again. Su Chen suddenly woke up and quickly put away the silly and lewd smile on her face. I'm not up to par, the plot is so vulgar, can't I dream of something else? He thought to himself. Embrace a little bit, fall asleep, reopen, and take me flying. Take your sister, it's time to leave. The dormitory is closing soon. I don't have the money to buy cigarettes and send them to the gatekeeper. Zhang Jingzha pushed aside the chairs and left cursing. Su Chen felt sleepy and fell asleep again lying on the table. The phone screen lights up. Mr. Su, please come to the hospital for a check. Up at 9:00 a.m. tomorrow morning on time. What is this place? Memories flashed through Su Chen's mind like movie scenes. The scene before me seems familiar. Am I reborn? So. What about Ding? Ding lying in bed, come as soon as you say. For spirit battle clothes. What kind of thing is that? At first, Su Chen was a bit skeptical, but after clicking on the system to introduce this battle suit, he was ultimately mistaken. This is the mysterious cave of the dragon leader. Before my eyes, I saw a suit of armor resembling armor. Its head is a dragon head, and in front of the forehead of the dragon head in the center of the armor, a king character slowly condenses, forming a whole body mecha structure. Behind it are 2 huge fiery phoenix wings. Can handle the earth, fire and thunder. In the palm is a huge circular shield, which appears in the shape of a turtle shell. The entire body is red patterned with a black background, and it is the Xuanwu among the four spirits, with indestructible defense. There was a forged sword of killing and destruction inserted in his waist. Before the sword could be unsheathed, there was an indescribable gung gold, and the aura of killing and destruction dissipated. White Tiger's White Emperor gung gold sword. It's a bit like a spiritual garment built by the guardian spirit in the town Soul Street. It's quite handsome, Su Chen muttered to herself. Opening the system interface. After Su Chen gave a command, a phantom panel slowly appeared before her eyes. Mountain and Sea Descent System Host. Su Chen currently bound to divine beasts. White Tiger, awakened, Green Dragon, not yet awakened, Dragon Chi. 0, System Space. 100 cubic meters, Ability. Qinglong Strength, Item. White Emperor Gung Gold Sword, for Spirit Battle Clothes. Not bad. Su Chen rubbed her chin and muttered to herself, but she hadn't found any artifacts yet to absorb the dragon energy. But there's no rush either. In the following tomb of King Xian, the entire treasure of southern Yunnan, including the mysterious and unpredictable electric dust bead, was buried inside. Absolutely not insignificant. Good food is never too late, let's take it step by step. It's so hot. Yeah, why is it getting hotter the more you eat? On the other side, Hu Pang and his two brothers, including Shirley Yang, are eating the python meat of the green-scaled python stewed in an iron pot. Hu Bai and Shirley Yang both felt hot and dry all over at this moment. After eating 3 or 5 yuan, I can't continue to eat anymore. At this point, I have gone to digest it. You should know that emptiness is not replenished. They are not Su Chen's physical fitness. Ordinary people should not eat too much tiger bone soaked wine or ginseng, let alone the meat of these exotic beasts. But Hu Bai and Shirley Yang, to this extent, are also quite good compared to ordinary people. The fat guy on the other side. This kid is greedy, eating at least a dozen or more yuan. At this moment, his whole body is extremely hot and his energy is 100 times higher. He can't even sleep, jumping back and forth in place. I have to let him come and watch the night. Lao Hu and Shirley Yang, although they each crawled into their sleeping bags to sleep, in reality, they were both mentally tense and unable to sleep at this point. Su Chen looked at the couple banyan tree in front of him. The couple's old banyan tree they were resting on had even a few dozen people hugging it, making it difficult to hold it together. Moreover, the shape of this old banyan tree was extremely complex. The whole is 2 old banyan trees. Their roots and trunks are like fried dough twists flowers. Also make the trunk of this old banyan tree appearing incredibly robust. At the same time, above the huge old banyan tree, the entire crown was like an umbrella, with pavilions like a cover, blocking the sky and sun. The huge crown even cracked a gap in it, indicating that one's life was not long. Su Chen knew that the old banyan tree in front of him was one of the star positions in the sacrificial pit near the tomb of King Xian. This sacrificial pit is buried in the form of a tree, burying the high priest who helped the King Xian choose the top-notch immortal treasure cave of Shui Xian in the past. At the same time, above this couple's old banyan tree, there is a fallen World War II lighthouse transport plane with a plethora of weapons and equipment inside. Extremely exquisite. It is by no means comparable to the earth guns and cannons of Ma Bolan and others before. As Su Chen was pondering whether to take action now or wait for everyone to rest overnight before taking action, the chubby man beside him wore a steel helmet on his head. At this moment, holding a clay gun, the hat was still crooked. Just like the 2 traitors and devils during the anti-Japanese period of Taimyang, he saluted Su Chen at this moment and said, "Marshal Su, please rest. Tonight, Fat Lord, I will stand on this first post." Watching the chubby man's comical movements, Su Chen couldn't help but laugh beside him. Hu Bai, who was still asleep, was looking at the fat guy in his sleeping bag. The bystander said, "Fatty, where did you pick up the helmet?" "Yading, your head is like the traitor of Tianyang. You can't be the traitor of Shenhuang's old Zongzi. You want to catch us while standing guard tonight." After hearing this, the chubby man immediately cursed beside him, "Old Hu, your mouth is really bad. Your second uncle is actually a traitor. I'll wear a steel helmet and become a youth assault team, a model representative." "What nonsense are you talking about? I picked up this helmet from under this old banyan tree, who knows what's going on," the chubby man muttered. Shirley Yang didn't actually fall asleep either. After hearing Hu Pang and his buddies arguing, he crawled out of his sleeping bag and looked at the chubby guy's helmet, saying, "Old Su, this helmet seems to belong to the Flying Tigers." Then he frowned, as if thinking of something, and shone his wolf-eyed flashlight towards the tree crown. Shirley Yang is very clever. It should have been thought that there should be something special on this old banyan tree. The Flying Tigers during World War II were a team dedicated to supporting China and resisting Japan. At present, there is only one possibility that there may be a transport plane that crashed here. Hu Ba also noticed something was wrong and crawled out of his sleeping bag. Just at this moment. Dee dee dee. Suddenly, a rhythmic tapping sound came out from the huge couple banyan tree. The tapping sound varied in length, but it sounded extremely rhythmic, more like a signal. After hearing this noise, Shirley Yang's expression changed slightly as she stood by, and then she said, "Listen to the sound coming from the old banyan tree. It seems like a Morse code." Morse code is an internationally recognized signal that determines information by the length of the tapping sound. The fat man said on the side, "Chief Yang, your nerves are a bit too nervous. Even if there is a plane that crashed during World War II on the crown of this old banyan tree, it has been many years. Can you still pass us the Morse code? Isn't that a ghost? I see, 8 achievements is the sound made by some small animal." Shirley Yang said with a serious expression, "The sounds made by small animals cannot be so regular. When you hear this tapping sound, it is obvious that it is a 3 long, 3 short, and 3 long Morse code. This Morse code represents a universal distress signal internationally, which is SOS. Ku. Hu Bai said on the side, "Is it a ghost signal?" According to Hu Bai, in fact, when he was still in the army, there were many similar ghost signals like this. These are signals sent from some remote areas. But if the troops go to seek help, they may not even be able to come back. Regardless of whether it's a ghost signal or a monster signal, let's go up and take a look first. Even if there are any ghosts, snakes, or gods, we must let him taste Su Ye's hard-working iron fists and step on 10,000 feet. Su Chen said, shining a wolf-eyed flashlight beside him. Mr. Su said well. The chubby man stretched out his thumb beside him. Su Chen was too lazy to argue with the chubby guy and ordered, "Commander Hu and Commander Wang, you two are on guard under the tree. Chief Yang and I will go up and take a look." "Yes, Marshal Su." Hu Pang and the others nodded. Immediately after, Su Chen grabbed the flying tiger claw, a steel-made flying tiger claw, and grabbed onto the vines of the old tree. Su Chen quickly climbed along the trunk of the couple's banyan tree. Shirley Yang followed behind Su Chen, skillfully climbing up the vines of these tree trunks with a mountaineering pick. Soon, Su Chen had climbed onto the crown of this tree with Shirley Yang. With the help of moonlight and a wolf-eye flashlight, it is clear to see a huge airplane wing slanted above the tree crown, which is a transport plane from the lighthouse country that crashed and died here. Chapter 2. Strange Crystal Coffin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The plane was full of holes, and many places were already intertwined with the vines above the tree crown, crisscrossing each other. "Mr. Su, General Yang, how are you?" The voices of the Hu Pang brothers came from under the big banyan tree. Above is a crashed American transport plane. Su Chen shouted. Shirley Yang observed carefully and explored along the wing section, only to see that on top of this cabin, there were symbols of blue sky and white sun, as well as a set of numbers. C5X.R1XXX.XX2. This number is exactly the symbol of the American Flying Tigers during the anti-Japanese and aid to China period, and it can also be clearly seen in this blue sky and white sun. I think the helmet that the chubby guy just picked up fell off this plane. Shirley Yang was shining on the cabin in front of her, and then turned around and said, "This is a transport plane that crashed in World War II back then. But where did the signal just come from? Is it the ghost of the pilot?" Su Chen remained silent. Shirley Yang was pondering deeply when she heard a series of ticking sounds coming out from the cockpit deep inside the cabin. It is almost the same as the Morse code I just heard. After hearing this sound, Shirley Yang's expression changed again. Su Chen, shining a wolf-eyed flashlight, stepped into the cabin first and then said, "General Yang, come with me and let's go in and take a look." "Okay." Shirley Yang nodded and looked at Su Chen's back, feeling a little more secure. After stepping into the cabin. On the side of this cabin, after walking for not 2 steps, there was a storage area covered with an oil paper bag. After Su Chen jumped it off with her feet. Under this oiled paper bag, there were neatly arranged ammunition, with neat yards and shiny oil. At the same time, underneath this ammunition pack, one can also notice neatly arranged firearms, all of which are identical World War II submachine guns. It's called a Thompson submachine gun. In essence, it is also known as the Chicago typewriter, a nickname given to it by the Chicago Mafia, because this submachine gun fights like a typewriter, ticking away. This type of submachine gun, compared to Ma Bolan's previous earthen gun. Those earthen guns can be simply thrown away as fire sticks. Moreover, these firearms wrapped in oil paper can still be touched with lubricating oil that has not dried up yet. They are all new firearms that have just been manufactured and are well maintained. Even after decades. It can still be used normally, and with this thing, their team's combat effectiveness can also be greatly enhanced. Su Chen counted and found exactly 4 Thompson submachine guns. After turning around and throwing a handful to Shirley Yang, I prepared to throw the remaining 2 and so on to the Hu Peng brothers. At the same time, I put the ammunition, equipment, and canned supplies on the side into the system space. Unfortunately, this fighter jet has already crashed into a state of disrepair. Otherwise, driving a fighter jet to pay tribute to the King's tomb and rob it, this deck is too big. Of course, this is just Su Chen's thought. After searching for these equipment, the cockpit was right in front of me, and from there came a series of ticking Morse codes. It immediately makes people's nerves tense. I saw the body of a pilot lying askew in the cockpit in front of me, wearing a helmet from World War II. The sound came from here. After giving each other a glance, Su Chen and Shirley Yang were about to touch each other. Squeak. In front of me, I saw the body of the pilot lying diagonally, slowly twisting its neck with the helmet and turning towards them. This scene is extremely frightening. Even a strong woman like Zueliang couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva, and then tightly squeezed Su Chen's hand. Shirley 093 Yang's hands are soft, smooth, and tender, with a good touch. At this critical moment. Bang! Su Chen only felt a tap on her shoulder, which made her nervous system tense. At this moment, someone patted her shoulder, which startled Su Chen. I haven't turned around yet to take action. The voice of the chubby boy had already come from behind. Mr. Su, General Yang, what kind of opportunistic activities are you two doing up there? Old Hu and I have been waiting down here for a long time. You kid, unorganized and undisciplined, who sent you up? Scare us, Su Chen snorted coldly. Then he took out 2 Chicago typewriters from his body and threw them to the chubby guy and the old Hu behind him. Thompson submachine gun, the loot just found, take it, he said after seeing the Thompson submachine gun, the chubby man's eyes lit up instantly. This kid grew up in a military district courtyard since childhood and is extremely interested in firearms. He used to have trash with local guns and hunting rifles. For him, it's just a burning stick. Seeing this real guy at the moment, he couldn't help pulling the bolt open, kissed him hard and said, "Mr. Su, with this good thing, even if there is a big zongzi, I can break it." Just as the fat guy is boasting. Shirley Yang's voice came from the side. "Su-chen, look at that pilot." Su-chen turned around to look, and at this moment, the pilot's head had completely twisted. Under the helmet, there were a pair of golden eyes. It's incredibly penetrating. I haven't waited for a few people to react yet. Yay! Under this steel helmet, there was a hissing sound of a raptor, and a giant creature resembling an owl, with sharp claws and teeth, rushed toward Su-chen and others. "Be careful, this thing is called the carved owl. I heard of it before when I was in the army. This kind of raptor has a cruel nature and holds grudges. It is a carnivorous animal. Its claws, even if a blind bear is caught, will drop a large piece of flesh." Hu Ba shouted from the side. At this moment, the bolt of the fat man's opened gun had already fired a series of bullets. Da-da-da. The cabin was already narrow, and a series of bullets shot down a string of bird feathers. This eagle owl also knew the power of the Chicago typewriter. After struggling to climb out of the cabin, a pair of big eyes, resembling golden lamps, glared fiercely at Su-chen before emitting a strange roar from his mouth. Accompanied by this roar, I saw a large number of golden lanterns like carved owls appearing in the night sky, with several black shadows hovering outside the cabin. Yeah, it turns out that this grandson has gone to shake people. "I won't break him, fat master," said the fat man angrily. "Old Hu, chubby guy, General Yang, you go up and be careful," Su-chen instructed. Next, it's a big battle. Although this carved owl is a raptor in the air, it is simply a group of flat-haired animals, far from being considered as one of the exotic beasts. There is no need to take action on my own. Just let the Hu Pang brothers and Sherry Yang take action. Currently, the three of them have at least 3 Chicago typewriters, which are submachine guns with high power or continuous firing. It's enough to deal with the carved owl. Shit. A large cabin was torn apart by the eagle owl's claws, and in the darkness before us, the huge eagle owl flew in mid-air like a ghost. Flat-haired beast. The fat man cursed loudly. Da-da-da. Under the night sky, 3 Chicago typewriters were seen spewing flames one after another, and a large number of bullets intertwined to form a dense spider web. Under such intense firepower, in an instant, 7 or 8 carved owls were already dead and fell to the ground. The remaining 1 or 2 carved owls witnessed the strength of Su-chen and others. "I dare not stay here any longer." After flapping his wings and letting out a mournful cry, he quickly ran away. Accompanied by a series of shots and a whole night of activity, the dusk in the sky gradually dissipated, and a ray of rosy light appeared before us. And at the same time, accompanied by the dawn. This huge couple's old banyan tree was already causing this huge crashed transport plane to crack open from the middle and be on the verge of collapse. At this time, along with Su-chen and others, they fought fiercely against these raptors and carved owls on the trunk of this old banyan tree overnight. At present, this old banyan tree finally can't hold on. At this moment it was shaking and about to crack open. Su-chen grabbed the claws of a flying tiger and held Shirley Yang in his arms, shouting, "Old Hu, fat man, the big tree is about to crack. Let's go down first." Shirley Yang jumped down with a red face in her arms. Leaving Hu Pang and his 2 bachelors behind, the 2 brothers looked at each other and then the chubby man said, "Old Hu, how can we get down?" Hu Ba said, "How do I know?" In the end, Su-chen threw up a climbing rope, and the 2 brothers quickly descended along the rope. This huge couple banyan tree, finally unable to hold on, exploded from within with a loud bang. In the cracked trunk, a semi-transparent blood coffin emerged. After seeing the emerging coffin, the chubby man didn't hesitate to stumble and looked at the coffin in front of him with dust all over his head, saying, "My grandma, Mr. Su, we've made a lot of money now. The old banyan tree in front of me is cracking from the central part. It cracked all the way to the lower part, and the cracked part revealed a blood jade coffin. Under the sunlight, a faint light escaped. The coffin in front of me is entirely made of crystal. The crystal material on its surface is as thin as cicada wings. This semi-transparent crystal coffin has an incredibly smooth surface material, while the more you look inside, the more it appears semi-blood red. It looks like a semi-transparent crystal coffin, like a blood coffin filled with blood. Not to mention anything else, the material of the jade coffin in front of us is priceless. If we strip it off, it may be worth a lot of money. And the blood coffin in front of me is also buried in a very unique position. I have never seen anyone bury the coffin in the belly of a tree, which is a taboo in Feng Shui. Hu Bai, standing beside him, looked at the blood coffin in front of him and said, "Master Su, this coffin is a bit sinister. The burial location is so strange, Ada. The ancients emphasized that death is like life. Burial is also a significant matter, and there are also many considerations in the way of burial. According to the Burial Sutra, burial emphasizes the importance of embracing yin with negative yang, leaning against mountains and water. Since ancient times, there has been a tradition of tomb repair, which emphasizes having a seal and a tree. However, I have never seen anyone bury a coffin, so I simply bury it in the belly of a tree. This is completely contrary to common sense. Not to mention the strangeness of the tree burial in front of him." Hu Ba took a cigarette and said, "Master Su, although Zhelong Mountain is also a dragon vein, this single peak and isolated mountain must be a lone dragon. The dragon hunting technique says, dragons are afraid of loneliness, their acupoints are afraid of cold, and their surroundings should not be truly dangerous. A solitary dragon on a solitary mountain is not safe, and it is determined to face difficulties and difficulties. Mr. Su, simply because of this terrain, it is not a suitable Feng Shui treasure for burial, let alone something like this. This strange way of burial is really strange." The chubby man was copying the engineer's shovel and said, "Old Hu, what do you think is appropriate for you to care about him? In my opinion, let's just open the coffin and take the treasure, and see what's going on inside. Commander Wang, you kid is disorganized and undisciplined." Hu Bai said on the side, "The Feng Shui terrain here is extremely eerie. The valley is high in the east and low in the west, and the terrain is extremely isolated. It is clearly a depression. In terms of Feng Shui and astrology, this place is definitely not a place for burying people. If a temple or ancestral hall were built, it would be okay. The coffin is full of mystery everywhere, and whose blood is the red liquid inside?" Hu Ba frowned and analyzed. "The crystal coffin in front of me is intertwined with a large number of crisscrossing vines extending from the trunk. There are slight cracks in the lower corner of the coffin." Chapter 3. Symptomatic Python Transformation Tree. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. From these cracks, some crimson liquid from the blood coffin slowly dripped down from the cracks. After seeing this place, Shui Liang and others suddenly realized that the ghost signal they had just heard might be the sound of the crimson liquid dripping from the blood coffin. Su Chen, with a small divine edge, took a little of the crimson liquid and then sniffed it at his nose. A smell of traditional Chinese medicine. The crimson liquid in this crystal coffin is not actually blood or anything else, but a traditional Chinese medicine liquid specially treated for preservation. This thing is not blood. These crimson liquids should be just a special type of traditional Chinese medicine for preservation. Su Chen turned around and said these words, dispelling the doubts of several people. Then he said to Lao Hu, "Do you know about the Rotten Bone Cave?" Rotten Bone Cave. Hu Ba nodded beside him and said, "Mr. Su, of course I know. Rotten Bone Cave is also known as Rotten Bone Cave. Buried here can only help people dissolve bone decay, not a good acupoint. Mr. Su. What you mean is that this may be a rotten bone acupoint on the water dragon vein of Xian Wang. But why did this person bury himself here? Hu Ba raised his eyebrows and said. Su Chen said on the side, Old Hu, although this rotten bone acupoint is not a good feng shui treasure, it can be buried in this rotten bone acupoint. Yin does not intersect with Yang, and Yang is not as good as Yin. The boundaries are unclear, the situation is blurred, and the qi channels are scattered and do not gather. Originally, when burying corpses here, it was inevitable that they would be dismembered and their bones would rot. However, this person is proficient in magic and has changed the feng shui pattern of this place through tree burial, ensuring that their bodies do not rot. However, as for what this person really wants to do, they still need to open the coffin to know. Perhaps it is occupying the water dragon vein of the Xian Wang, using the technique of Yin and Yang, that they also want to slowly transform into immortals in this tree burial, said Su Chen beside them. Hu Ba nodded beside him, as Su Chen's words were also possible. Upon hearing Su Chen say he was going to open the coffin, the chubby man immediately came over and took out an engineering shovel, ready to pry open the coffin. But the coffin in front of me is not an ordinary burial pattern. The overall structure is more like a drawer-like structure, with no mortise and tenon joints connected to each other. Only the surface vines of this jade coffin were cleaned with a paratrooper's knife. Then with a sudden push. This jade coffin has already been pushed open by Su Chen and others. Under the sunlight, one could clearly notice a humanoid shadow immersed in the crimson medicinal liquid. At the same time, I don't know if this coffin itself is a cult. Just as the coffin lid was being pushed open, the originally clear and cloudless sky suddenly drifted with a cloud of ink, which completely covered the sky. Make the originally sunny noon seem like night. Thunder one at a time. Like a monster born. The fat man cursed at this old fairy nearby, and even when he died, he didn't stop. Look at how I can catch your treasure, fat master. At the same time, he took out the mountaineering pickaxe from his body and used its head to hook the corpse inside the coffin. The chubby man suddenly pulled it out. A fat old man's body, still wearing a bright red robe, holding a short dragon and tiger staff in his arms, with a golden mask covering his face. This attire clearly resembles the appearance of a high priest under King Xian in the southern Yunnan region. To be buried in this tree belly, the yin and yang extraordinary person in the blood coffin must be the high priest under the command of King Xian. The body of this high priest is preserved vividly, and can even be said to be fresh. It is undeniable that in the land of southern Yunnan over 2,000 years ago, the people of Xian Wang and his gang were able to preserve the body to this extent through what means. The golden mask covering the face of the corpse is clearly made of pure gold. The design structure is even more peculiar. In the 7 orifices, there are some ancient blue and white jade inlaid, and the decoration of these blue and white jade is still movable, like a hidden buckle. The shape of the golden mask is even more ferocious. Double horns grow on the head, the mouth is shaped like a tiger's mouth, and the 2 ears appear in the shape of a fish tail. This ancient sacrificial mask is mostly like this. Essentially, it's also normal. After all, the common people have a lower level of understanding, and only this unique and eerie mask can better deter the barbarians at that time. At the same time, on the surface of this eerie and ferocious golden mask, there are actually spiral patterns that follow in circles. These swirling patterns intertwine to form a spherical emblem. Take a closer look. Surprisingly, the shape of the electric dust bead recorded on the Dragon Bone Heavenly Book is somewhat similar. If it looks like this, the news of the electric dust bead in the tomb of King Xian may have added a bit of authenticity. After Su Chen removed the pure gold mask covering the face of the high priest, the size of this object can be considered as an ancient artifact from over 2,000 years ago, and its shape is eerie, made of pure gold. Absolutely valuable goods. Dragon Chi plus 800 after removal, a sound sounded in the ear at the same time. Su Chen's eyes suddenly brightened up. After arriving in this southern Yunnan for so long, there has finally been progress. After putting the golden mask into the snake skin pocket, Su Chen immediately took off the dragon and tiger short staff held in the arms of the high priest. Dragon Chi plus 1200 in just a few minutes, 2000 Dragon Chi was credited to the account. Not bad harvest. Su Chen rubbed her hands. It's not yet the main tomb of the Xianwang tomb. These two things are both golden masks, which were worshipped by the high priests in the southern Yunnan region during the ancient pre-Qin period. They have a mysterious and unpredictable shape, made entirely of gold, and are exquisitely crafted. Absolute category of artifacts. And this dragon and tiger short staff is made of polished bluestone, with a powerful and heavy shape, and a touch of agility in dust. It's also a good antique. These two things can also be placed in one's own treasure appreciation building to serve as storefronts. Thinking of this, Su Chen also threw these two things separately into his own system space. Then he grabbed the fat guy's mountaineering pickaxe and suddenly grabbed the body of the high priest. It turned out that the body of the high priest had been hooked by something. What was originally salvaged was only the upper body. Now, along with the lower body, it has already been pulled out. Under the restraint of the high priest, the lower part of his body was hooked to the body of a skinless python. Above the python's tail, there were red flesh threads jumping on top of the python's body. I'll go. Master Su, this thing is a monster. The fat man couldn't help but shout from the side after seeing the body of the skinless python. This thing is not a monster. I know why this high priest was buried in this rotten bone cave. The body doesn't rot anymore. This person is a wizard under the command of King Xian, who used hernia techniques to skin the python and hook it onto his own body. Then, with these red hernia threads, he hooked it onto the root of the couple's old banyan tree. Herniation is a kind of sorcery that uses the soul as a medium. This python was tortured and died by the high priest, and its subsequent souls coexisted on the 670-old banyan tree. This means that the old banyan tree has now become the ghost of this python. And these red flesh threads are the tools used by this python to hunt down some small insects or animals near the old banyan tree. After absorbing nutrients, they are used to feed back the body of the high priest in the blood coffin. How did you come up with this symbiotic system of evil sections? Su Chen couldn't help but comment. The Hu Pang brothers on the side, including Shirley Yang and others, couldn't help but take a cold breath upon hearing this. Looking at the couple's old banyan tree on the side, I feel like the ghost of a python, watching them. Mr. Su, why didn't the old banyan tree attack us when we were just sleeping here? Asked the fat man beside him. Perhaps the old banyan tree hasn't fully awakened yet, Su Chen said just as he finished speaking. I saw a large number of red flesh threads rapidly spreading out from the roots and stems of this big tree. The meat thread is like small red snakes. Or like red earthworms. It is extremely disgusting. But as long as it entangles with insects or some animals in the trunk, it becomes like a suction cup, and in an instant, these things dry up. Subsequently, nutrition will be used for personal purposes and enter the body of the corpse in the blood coffin. Strike! Su Chen shouted loudly upon seeing the situation, and the Hu Pang brothers, including Shirley Yang, reacted quickly. They quickly picked up their Chicago typewriter and shot towards the red flesh lines spreading on the ground in front of them. But this kind of attack is not of much use at all. Even if bullets break these red flesh lines, they will quickly regrow, and these red flesh lines are extremely eerie. And it has regeneration function. But after all, they are still ordinary people. If they slack off, they will inevitably be entangled in these red flesh threads, and they are afraid that it will be terrible. Su Chen knew that the body of the high priest in the blood coffin was the true owner of this evil hernia surgery. Immediately shouted, "Fatty, break this coffin for me." After hearing these words, the chubby man also understood Su Chen's meaning and viciously said with a Chicago typewriter in his hand, "You old monster, you want to take us, the Golden Lieutenant, to bury us when you die. Let you die today without a place to bury yourself." Duh duh duh. A large number of bullets poured out, directly shattering the blood coffin in front of me, and the body fell out. Accompanied by the body of this high priest, it was shattered by a Chicago typewriter. These red flesh threads in front of me felt like the central nervous system had been cut off, and at this moment, they were limp and fell to the ground without any movement. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the situation. But before this breath could be completely relieved, the old banyan tree in front of the couple seemed to have completely lost its vitality after the jade coffin was broken. At this point, along with the rhizome, it was directly pulled out and tilted downwards. At the bottom of this stem, a huge black hole was exposed, and black smoke emanated from beneath it, rushing into the sky. Surprisingly, the original dark clouds were scattered quite a bit, accompanied by the appearance of this large hole. I saw a huge stone turtle, carrying a stone tablet, slowly rising from this big hole. "This is physique," Hu Ba said as he saw the stone turtle carrying a stone tablet in front of him. "This thing is not the original material." Su Chen said on the side, "This is a jiaotu. Although it looks like a corpse, its claws are slightly rounded, which is formed by the difference in style between southern Yunnan and central China. The examiner supports the monument, while the jiaotu town house. This area is already a rotten bone cave located on the water dragon vein of the tomb of King Xian, which is adjacent to his tomb. This jiaotu town is located here. It was built on the completion of the Xianwang project that year, and the stone beast town was located near the king's tomb." After listening to Su Chen's explanation, Hu Ba nodded beside him and said, "Master Su, you have gained a lot of knowledge." Shirley Yang ignored the words of the few people and approached with a paratrooper's knife, peeling them off. She then looked at the stone tablet on the back of the picture in front of her and said, "Old Su, fat man, old Hu, come and take a look. This seems to be a map of Junling. Junling genealogy." Upon hearing this, the Hu Pang brothers quickly passed by. The Junling genealogy records some information about the royal tomb, which is similar to the function of epitaphs. After hearing this Junling genealogy, people naturally want to take a look. Is there any electric dust bead that I have been longing for so long here, in this tomb of King Xian? The Junling genealogy records some ancient seal script, which records the construction process of this tomb dedicated to the king, and there are many sentences on it. Shirley Yang was shooting with a camera. Su Chen looked at the sentence above and understood it. The information above goes a bit far, starting from the era of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. It is recorded that during the reign of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, this area of southern Yunnan was only a county of the state of Qin. At the time of the downfall of the Qin dynasty, the central plains was in turmoil, so the king of Yunnan closed off southern Yunnan and implemented autonomy. After the founding of the Great Han dynasty, there were internal worries and external difficulties, and there was no time to pay attention to this dilapidated place. It was not until the reign of Emperor Wu of Han that he surrendered and became a vassal. Later, Emperor Wu of Han heard that there was an electric dust bead in southern Yunnan that could make people immortal. So he demanded these treasures from the original king of Yunnan. Who would be willing to hand over such precious treasures as the electric dust pearl to Emperor Wu of Han at that time? But the small country of Manor in southern Yunnan dared not disobey Emperor Wu's wishes. Subsequently, King Xian directly carried the electric dust beads and split away from southern Yunnan, heading to the area of Zhelong Mountain to build tombs. The king of Dian has no choice. I had to offer a fake shadow bead to Emperor Wu of Han at that time. When she saw this, Shirley Yang pondered beside her and said, "It seems that in the Maoling mausoleum of Emperor Wu of Han, the legendary electric dust beads are just fake shadow beads. When the peasant army rebelled and excavated Maoling, all the treasures in Maoling were destroyed. If the electric dust beads lose their fall at that time, I really don't know where to look. Next is the construction process of the Xianwang tomb, which is described as having an extremely large scale of construction. It can be said that 10,000 people chop down trees, and one person ascends to heaven. The construction of the tomb of King Xian, from beginning to end, lasted for a total of about 27 years, and the craftsmen involved in constructing the tomb of King Xian spent a total of 100,000 manpower. It can be said that the original King Xian was almost a national effort to create a tomb for himself to become an immortal. Amazing. This also confirms the cruelty and absurdity of the old Zongzi. Next is the high priest's tomb buried in the decaying bone cave of the Xianwang water dragon vein, which is similar to what Su Chen mentioned earlier in the Zhenling genealogy. This rotten bone cave is a python captured by King Xian. After peeling off its skin, it was buried together with the body of the high priest. It can be said that it was used as one's own tomb and a guardian was arranged here. See here. I have to marvel at the ruthlessness of King Xian, even the high priest who chose his own tomb. Following that came some useless words praising virtues and achievements. Su Chen and others were too lazy to continue reading, and then turned around to look at the back of the Zhenling tree. On the back of the Zhenling tree, they saw a magnificent relief. On this relief, a magnificent palace is depicted, almost suspended in the clouds, which is astonishing. At the highest point of the Worm Valley recorded in this relief, there is a magnificent palace, with almost all of them including the Moon City, Corner Tower, Inner City, Burial Stele, Keitai, Divine Wall, Steel Pavilion, Sacrificial Hall, and Lingtai, creating a magnificent atmosphere. Underneath it, there is no depiction of a cornerstone or foundation, but rather a glow of rainbow shadows, soaring smoke, and surrounded by flying dragons. As if built on this cloud and neon. Surprisingly. At the bottom, there is the Shinto within the Worm Valley, which extends to the periphery of the Worm Valley. On both sides of this Shinto, there are towering and magnificent mountains that stretch endlessly, as well as a large number of ancient wolf forests and so on. The magnificent palace at the top is even more surprising. The fat man on the side could not help but take a cold breath. Mr. Su, the old Zongzi offering the king has built the tomb in the sky. Chapter 4. Stepping into the Worm Valley and breaking the worm path. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 5. Mountain God Temple, 9 curved circles facing the mountain case. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The huge fiery red gourd in front of me stands amidst the chaotic grass, presenting a fiery red overall, 1.5 person tall. Follow this fiery red gourd. Looking ahead again. In front of me is a valley terrain surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, and in this valley, there is a mountain temple. This mountain temple is a huge wedge-shaped building, covered in vines on the surface, but it has not collapsed for over 2,000 years. Shanshan Temple, Lao Hu, I believe the tomb of the King Xian must be here. Go in and take a look, Su Chen said. Okay. Hu Ba nodded beside him. The gate of this mountain temple has not been sealed yet. After Su Chen kicked it open, the main hall of this mountain temple was right in front of him. I saw it in the front hall of this mountain temple. It is an ancient altar. On top of the altar, there are 3 clay cast stone statues, and the one in the center is clearly a mountain god statue, a black-faced god. On both sides of this statue of the mountain god, they are 2 yiksha little ghosts, with blue faces and fangs, while also holding 2 different things in their arms. Holding a huge toad. The other one is holding a fiery red gourd. After stepping into the mountain temple, the chubby man searched for a while but couldn't find any secret passage to the tomb of King Xian through the 243 route. I have already entered the back hall to search. At the same time, besides this mountain temple, a skeleton can be seen lying next to this altar. The skeleton was dressed in adventure clothing, with a cloth bag hanging from it. On the surface of the jacket of the adventure suit, you can see a postcard or something like it in your pocket. Above is a person with a name. After seeing the corpse, Shirley Yang immediately looked nervous and quickly stepped forward to take out the postcard. I saw 3 more words above. Yang Xianwei. After seeing these 3 words, Shirley Yang burst into tears. The body in front of her was Shirley Yang's father. Shirley Yang's family originated from the Zagrama tribe near the Zagrama mountains, and their people have been cursed with ghost holes for generations. Therefore, throughout history, mountain movers have been searching for electric dust beads. Even Shirley Yang's father, Yang Xianwei, is no exception. From the 9-story demon tower and the exquisite ancient city, Shirley Yang can see the traces of her father's former team. But I didn't see my own father in person. Now it is finally in this tomb of the King Xian that I have seen the remains of my father himself. For a while. This pain really made Shirley Yang feel uncomfortable. Su Chen looked at Shui Liang's sad expression and knew what she was thinking. She hugged Shui Liang slightly beside her. Just at this moment. Su Yi, Lao Hu, Chief of Staff Yang, come and take a look. There are 9 big toads here. The fat man's voice came from the back hall of the mountain temple. Okay. Su Chen shouted at the fat man. Then, together with Shirley Yang, they dug a simple tomb in this mountain temple, which buried Shirley Yang's father. Then everyone stepped into the back hall. In this rear hall, as the fat man had said, there were a total of 9 huge toads, although they had the same form, their respective orientations were different. Place your mouth in different directions. After seeing the 9 huge toads in front of him, Hu Ba stood aside and said, Master Su, the arrangement of these toads follows a 9-curved loop. Can you crack this mechanism? Su Chen asked. Just give it to me. Hu Ba nodded and quickly came to the side of the toad statue, asking the fat man to help. Quickly arrange in a 9-curved circular pattern. The 9 huge toad stone statues in front of me have been placed in the correct positions. After Lao Hu placed these 9 huge toad stone statues in the correct position, he only heard the outside of the mountain god temple. Click. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. Outside, let's go out and take a look. Su Chen said. Su Chen naturally knew that the true mechanism of the tomb of King Xian was not inside, but inside the fiery red gourd outside the mountain temple. After arriving outside, I saw the huge fiery red gourd that was originally 1 person tall outside. At this point, it had already split open from the middle, and in the center of this split, a stone gate emerged that resembled a toad's big mouth. Like a tomb gate. It seems that the secret passage of the tomb of King Xian must be here. Seeing that the secret passage to the tomb of King Xian had finally been found, a joyful expression appeared in everyone's eyes, and then Su Chen stepped forward. Dragging the fiery red gourd, the stone door cracked in the center. Then with a sudden tug. Under the stone gate, there is indeed a passage leading down. Su Chen and others were not in a hurry to continue. They waited by the side of the king offering passage for the filth in the toad's mouth to dissipate before speaking. Touching the toad's mouth. After waiting for half an hour, Su Chen and others finally put on their gas masks and tied a searchlight to their arms. I just stepped into the secret passage below. Below the toad's mouth is a downward staircase, and the end is not very clear. After Shirley Yang came down, she fired an illuminating flare towards the bottom, which could be noticed below. Below is a huge space. On both sides of the staircase, there should be a form of burial pit, with huge elephant bones and some slave bones buried separately in this burial pit. Elephant bones, including huge ivory, are half buried in this burial pit. Hu Ba stood by, holding a wolf-eyed flashlight, shining on the sacrificial elephant bones in this burial pit. He then said on the side, Mr. Su, this elephant bone is half buried in the soil, representing a special meaning of rising step by step. This ace offering is not small, I really want to be a fairy and go crazy. Su Chen nodded. The burial pits on both sides, upon closer inspection, are mostly ordinary human bones, skeletons, and similar objects. Su Chen was too lazy to continue reading. Next is the tomb of King Xian, and there are countless accompanying items in this tomb. I'm not in a hurry. After quickly descending this staircase, the end was already in sight. At the end was an underground river, and there was also a decaying and dilapidated boat. This was an underground water cave. Yeah, it's another water hole, I really haven't played. The chubby man couldn't help but complain beside him. Su Chen is already prepared. I'm not particularly surprised. At this point, after removing the hovercraft from the system space, the Hu Pang brothers quickly filled the hovercraft with air. Lost in this waterway with Hu Pang and his two brothers, they are already heading towards this waterway. In the river channel in front of me, the entire environment is even more ancient and weathered compared to the previous Zhelong Shanshui cave. In the huge water cave, there are also some ancient coral fossils located under the waterway. Simultaneously under the searchlight. It is obvious to notice that at the top of these caves in front of us, there are also a large number of vine roots that have already turned into fossils, fishing in mid-air. Su Chen asked the Hu Pang brothers to support the boat. Heading towards the end of the water hole in this Gourd cave, Hu Pang and his two brothers supported the boat while chatting with each other. Hu Ba said, "This water cave must be the secret passage to the tomb of Prince Xian. I don't know if there will be any mysterious creatures here." Su Chen didn't speak. But Su Chen knew that in this Gourd cave, it was a more dangerous section than the previous Zhelong Shanshui cave. At this point, follow the water surface of this Gourd cave. Quickly heading towards the inside, just as a few people were sliding the boat. Suddenly, I saw a change in the scene before me. In the middle of the river, a dead float slowly emerged from the central part. This dead float is extremely strange. The whole thing was like a capital letter of mourning, wrapped in white gauze and emitting a faint blue fluorescence. "Mr. Su, there is a dead float on this river channel," Hu Ba said when he saw the dead float in the middle of the river. "Old Hu, come and take a look," Su Chen ordered. Su Chen saw the dead float on the river and thought of something, which was the hernia baby in this Gourd cave. It's just not certain yet. After hearing Su Chen's instructions, Hu Ba immediately said on the sidelines, "All right, Su Yi." Immediately after, a flying tiger flew out of the body and caught it. Shoo! After the flying tiger caught and flew out, it directly brought the dead float over, which was even more shocking when viewed up close. This dead float is a 16 or 17-year-old girl, with a face similar to the stone figurines in the water cave of Zhelong Mountain before. Appearing extremely resentful. Resentment. 4.3 At this moment, the entire body was floating on this river channel, presenting a special jade-like appearance. Just as Su Chen and others were planning to salvage the body. Gollum. Suddenly, a series of bubbles emerged from the body. Before anyone could react, the corpse was already submerged beneath the river. Su Chen frowned. Knowing the true identity of this dead drifter is none other than the hernia baby. At present, regardless of anything else, let the Hu Pang brothers continue to board the ship while also preparing themselves for battle. Since we have already seen this hernia baby, the next step is definitely to encounter the giant monster who was undead. Next is the highlight. The hovercraft quickly drifted through the river and gradually arrived at the center of the Huledong. In front of me was a circular cave. There is also a shallow beach on the side. The Hu Pang brothers followed Su Chen's instructions and propped up the hovercraft to the middle of the shoal, then went up to the shoal. Hu Ba looked at the circular cave in front of him. At this moment, he took a cold breath and said, "Master Su, this is the best feng shui place, Gourd Cave." Chapter 6. Ultimate Feng Shui Treasure Land, Gourd Cave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Ultimate Feng Shui Treasure Land. The chubby man heard this and looked at Hu Bai in confusion. Hu Ba explained beside him, "Fatty guy, you don't know that. On top of Feng Shui, there are several top-notch Feng Shui treasures, namely Sleeping Cow Land, Turtle Sleeping Land, and Tai Chi Rhyme. This Gourd cave is also one of them. I thought this King Xian was just occupying a water faucet, but I didn't expect this tusk to have such ability to find such a gourd hole." Hu Ba sighed and said. Su Chen had no words. But looking at the ruins on this shallow beach. On this shallow beach, there are still many relics and an ancient black stone tablet. On top of the stone tablet, there are also some ancient patterns carved. Su Chen and Shui Liyang are currently observing the stone tablet in front of them. Shirley Yang looked at the stone tablet in front of her, simultaneously taking out the digital camera, still recording something. The content recorded on the stone tablet is quite simple. In the first chapter, the patterns are some primitive people with feathers on their heads. These primitive people, dressed in animal skins. At this moment, they are respectively riding on a bamboo raft. It seems to be coming towards the middle of this gourd hole. At the same time, on their bamboo raft, there were also huge toads bound, which looked a bit restless, as if waiting for them was not a good thing. Su Chen continued to look down. The primitive person with feathers on his head, who looked somewhat like the leader of these primitive people, arrived at the corner of a gourd hole. Then, from the bamboo raft, with a bamboo rod, the big toad jumped up and threw it towards the crevice in the cave. I saw it in the crevices of this cave. The toad that was just thrown in emitted a billowing black smoke at this moment. At the same time, in the crevices of this cave, a black-faced mountain god can be seen devouring these toads inside. After seeing this, Shirley Yang said to the side, "Old Su, it seems that this place should have been a place for worshipping the mountain god in ancient times. This mountain god likes to eat these toads." The chubby man beside him said, "Hi, so this place is still where the mountain god lord resides. Master Su, this is really bad. Isn't it time to meet some mountain god next?" "Perhaps this is just an exaggerated way of expression," said Shirley Yang beside her. The ancient people were already quite superstitious, and there may not be any real mountain god here. Although Shirley Yang said so. But right now, in this gourd cave, there is an indescribable mystery everywhere, especially when it comes to the hernia technique used by the previous King Xian. It is even more unsettling in people's hearts. Su Chen didn't say much and was planning to look towards the other side of the cave to see where the tomb of the King Xian was. Woo! Just at this moment. Suddenly, a cry came out from this ancient gourd cave. This cry appeared incredibly eerie, making people uncomfortable all over, and at the same time, it emerged along with it. I saw the river in front of me. A large number of dead drifts quickly emerged at this moment. At the same time, accompanied by the appearance of the dead floating, a red mist was seen, causing a huge existence in the cave to spew out. The red mist almost obscured the entire cave scene. After Su Chen and others saw this red toxic mist, I dare not underestimate it at the moment. Quickly retreating on this shallow beach, while taking out the pre-prepared gas mask and covering his face. After this red mist, it seems as if there is still a huge prehistoric beast hidden, devouring in large numbers, chewing on the dead floats floating in these rivers. Squeak, squeak. You can hear the continuous chewing sound coming from behind this red mist. It's simply making the scalp tingle. Oh my goodness, what kind of monster is behind this? Su Yi, can it be true that some mountain god has come out? The fat man shouted beside him, accompanied by the chubby boys shouting. At this moment, the big monster behind the red poisonous mist seemed to have also sensed the presence of Su Chen and others. The original chewing sound. At this moment, it suddenly stopped. The entire cave fell into a eerie silence at this moment, followed by a giant one-eyed bug. Suddenly amidst a roar. With a series of rustling iron leaves, he crawled out from behind this red poisonous mist. Roar. Accompanied by this roar. Behind this red poisonous mist, there was a huge demon insect covered in a huge golden mask, whose shape was almost identical to the one on the face of the previous high priest. It's just even bigger. At the center of the golden mask is the one-eyed creature of this giant demon. At the same time, the body of this huge demon insect was covered with bronze battle armor, and a layer of green rust had already grown on the surface. These bronze armor are exactly something called dragon scale demon armor. I'll go. What kind of monsters are these? The chubby man couldn't help but shout out after seeing the huge monster in front of him. This is the Hua's immortal worm. Su Chen shouted loudly. Be careful. Old Hu, fat guy, use the Thompson submachine gun. Su Chen ordered. After Hu Pang and his two brothers regained their senses, they were both accustomed to the rough weather and quickly took out their firearms. Da-da-da. A large number of bullets tilted onto the body of the Hoxlet undead at this moment. But even so, the body of this Huashur undead is covered with a large amount of dragon-scale demon armor, and bullets hit it, only creating a series of sparks. Roar. On the contrary, it made this Feng even more irritable. At this moment, the huge body suddenly swung in the middle of the river, splashing thousands of feet of water. This huge Yunnan long worm opens its big mouth. This Yunnan long worm has no facial features, and its entire face is a huge mouthpiece in the shape of 4 petals, which opens at this moment. Inside are densely packed inverted teeth, as well as 4 huge fangs. Seeing bullets is useless. At this moment, Su Chen also drew out the White Emperor's gung gold sword, and then leaped to the front of the Immortal Mother's bug. He held the White Emperor's gung gold sword in his hand and headed towards the Immortal Mother's bug, killing it. Clash. After the sword in Su Chen's hand fiercely struck the body of this Yunnan long insect. At this moment, a layer of battle armor covering its surface split apart. Upon seeing this, Su Chen was planning to seize the opportunity to pursue it. I saw the huge body of this Yunnan long worm. It was already falling towards Su Chen. Mr. Su. Hu Pang and his 2 brothers quickly shouted. Boom. A huge splash of water exploded, and at this moment, where the long worm of the Yunnan fell, Su Chen's body surface was only visible, slowly forming an illusory battle suit. The surface of the battle suit condensed into a ferocious white head, emitting a roaring sound. The defense of this battle suit is good. At this moment, Su Chen withstood the blow of the Yunnan bug and surprisingly, nothing happened. Oh my goodness. Seeing Su Chen in front of me, there was nothing wrong. The chubby man couldn't help but take a cold breath and said, Old Hu, I didn't see it wrong. Su Yi is too fierce, isn't he? These methods are simply admirable. I read it right. Hu Bai's face also showed a deep shock. Su Chen surprisingly let this huge Yunnan bug fall down suddenly without any problem, which was simply surprising. Don't talk about brother Hu Pang anymore. Even Sherry Yang, who had always been knowledgeable, was at this moment, with a glimmer of brilliance in her eyes. Being able to face this huge fairy beetle alone. Such means. It's simply admirable. Su Chen's body condensed battle armor, which was very useful. At this moment, he slowly pulled out his sword from his waist. I saw the White Emperor's gung gold sword on top. What is completely depicted is a lifelike shape of a white fierce tiger, which appears even more majestic. Qinglong Jin. Su Chen used the White Emperor gung gold sword to directly chop and shatter the dragon scale demon armor covering the long insect in front of her. 623 was immediately visible above its fist print. A blue dragon claw emerged. Su Chen punched the surface of the body of this Yunnan bug. Roar. The Immortal Mother let out a scream of agony. The huge body flew backwards in front of Su Chen at this moment. Falling into the river, a large amount of river water splashed out, and now it fell from above like pouring rain. Hu Pang brothers, including Shirley and Yang. At this moment, the splashing water in the river fell on him without even moving. At this moment, it seemed like I was stunned. Is this big bug dead? The chubby man dared not channel. This is too fierce, isn't it? Mr. Su, I really admire you, the chubby man shouted. After the Yunnan bug fell to the side. Qinglong's strength. Explode. Boom. I saw the belly of the big bug suddenly explode at this moment, followed by the last scream of the Yunnan long bug. With a sound of wow. Starting from my belly, I violently vomited out a large amount of dead float and yellow mucus, which was extremely disgusting. Su Chen was already prepared. At this moment, he jumped onto the shallow water and pulled Shirley Yang, who was already hiding on the side. On the contrary, it was the Hu Pang brothers who were unaware of the situation. At this moment, they faced the big bug and spat out yellow mucus and dead float all over their body. Especially the chubby guy. At this moment, seeing that Su Chen had dealt with the Yunnan bug, he hurriedly roared and ran towards the middle of the river, preparing to salvage the golden mask on the face of the Yunnan bug. At this moment, the body was sprayed with mucus all over. Unable to resist cursing loudly. Still cleaning the mucus on my body, while looking at the vomit of this big bug, I suddenly realized it was in the center of these dead floats. Among these vomitus. Surprisingly, there is also a huge bronze coffin. It also made the big bug vomit, and the fat man exclaimed excitedly. Su Yi, Lao Hu, Chief of Staff Yang, come and take a look. There is a bronze coffin here. Chapter 7. 3 Artifacts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bronze coffin. After hearing the fat man's words, Su Chen and others also looked around. In addition to the large number of white clothes and dead floats, there was also a huge bronze wooden box in the center amidst the vomit of the Yunnan long worm. This bronze wooden box has a considerable volume. The overall feel is about 1 meter long, and the height is also about 1 meter. There are several huge copper nails wedged on the surface, but over time, they have already decayed. After removing the yellow mucus on the surface, it can be seen that this is not a coffin, but a huge wooden box. The wooden box is tightly sewn, except for a groove in the center, which is in the shape of a dragon and tiger short staff, just enough to fit it in. Why is this coffin in the stomach of this big bug? It's really strange. Old Hu, Mr. Su, and General Yang, what treasures do you think there will be here? The fat man looked at the bronze wooden box in front of him and said. This thing is not a coffin. This thing is a bronze wooden box, Su Chen said as he looked at the chubby man covered in mucus. Fatty guy, wash the mucus on your body and hold on to this sticky thing. Aren't you disgusted? Su Chen said. After hearing this, the fat man scratched his head and muttered twice, then quickly arrived at the riverbank, quickly removing the mucus from his body. It has been washed clean. Su Chen stepped forward. In this bronze wooden box, Su Chen, as an original author, knows that there are many artifacts inside. These artifacts can bring oneself a lot of dragon energy gains, and they are also valuable and meaningful collectibles. The big wooden box in front of me. If you want to open it, you need to take out the dragon and tiger short staff that was previously held by the high priest from the crystal coffin, and embed it in the groove of this wooden box. After Su Chen thought of this. Next, the dragon and tiger short staff was taken out of the system space and embedded into the groove of this wooden box. Shirley Yang on the side. With a wolf-eyed flashlight in his hand, he looked at the wooden box in front of him and said, Old Su, what kind of treasure do you think is stored here? This is somewhat like the Pandora's box obtained from the dragon's belly after killing it in Western mythology and legends. Su Chen glanced at Shirley Yang. Then with a sneer, the dragon and tiger short staff was embedded in the wooden box. Click. With the sound of the mechanism, Su Chen embedded the dragon and tiger's short staff inside, and the wooden box was slowly opened. I saw the entire wooden box inside. It is divided into 3 layers in total, and this is the topmost layer. In the middle of this top layer is black sewage, which was salvaged by the Yin Claw for a while. A bottle made entirely of white jade has already been grabbed by Su Chen with his Yin probing claws. I saw Su Chen salvage something. The Hu Pang brothers, including Shirley and Yang, also gathered around. In front of me, I can see that within the bottle made of white jade, there is a white jade about the size of a palm children. This is a rare jade fetus. The most surprising thing is that this jade body is exquisitely carved, and overall it can be said to be lifelike. Even the most subtle meridians and other details are carved to the bone. The overall jade tire is like a miniature version of a child, but only the upper body is carved. Su Chen held it in her hand. Dragon Chi plus 2000. I unexpectedly gained something. This jade body has a special symbolic significance. Although it is not an ordinary antique, there are things like sending a child to Guanyin in ancient times. This special jade fetus in front of me. Essentially, it is similar to the ancient Guanyin of sending children. They are all special magical tools containing gifts and blessings, which can be placed in one's own antique shop. Su Chen touched her chin and thought for a moment. Next, let the Hu Pang brothers lift the lid of the first layer. Below is the second layer. In the second layer of this bronze wooden box, there is a worn-out sack containing a large number of bones. The chubby guy originally saw Su Chen touch out such a treasure. I thought there was something extraordinary in this second layer, but when I saw that there were only some broken bones in this sack, I couldn't help but rage and say, yeah, why are all these rags here? Looking at these bones in front of me. Shirley Yang analyzed beside her and said, Old Su, old Hu, fat man, do you still remember the records we saw next to the stone tablet before? About those mountain gods. I think in the ancient area of Zhelong Mountain, there should indeed be such mountain gods. However, these black-faced mountain gods are likely to be mountain monsters, essentially monsters like chimpanzees and apes. These ignorant local barbarians, unaware of it, followed it as a mountain god to worship these things. In order to better rule and suppress the local barbarians near the Zhelong Mountain, King Xian destroyed all of these barbarians' beliefs together. I think the jade fetus that Su Chen just had is also a divine artifact of this barbarian's faith, and these mountain monsters are also the same, Shirley Yang analyzed. After hearing these words, Su Chen. I also looked admiringly at Sherry Yang, who was actually Chief of Staff Yang, the think tank in the team. So fast is already guessing the cause and effect of this bronze wooden box. This is basically similar to what Shirley Yang guessed. Su Chen didn't say much. The body of this mountain monster was not taken care of, to put it simply, it was also a product of ancient feudal superstition, which directly led the Hu Pang brothers to throw it into the nearby river. Following closely are the Hu Pang brothers. Following Su Chen's instructions, open this third layer again. In this bronze wooden box, one can completely see that in the third layer, there is a stone box carved with flying forks. This stone box is sealed. It is the most well-preserved among the 3 things. Su Chen took out the stone box from it, and the thing beside it was also the most valuable among the 3 layers. Using a paratrooper's knife, scrape off the sealed lacquer on top of this stone box. Immediately after quickly opening the stone box, I saw a 3-legged toad lying quietly in this stone box, which was made entirely of a blue jade stone. I can't see any material either. The craftsmanship of its creation is simply lifelike. The entire body presents a blue jade stone that resembles the sea surface, and its carving technique is even more lifelike. In the entire ecology of the toad, it reveals a sense of pride. Su Chen took out these 3-legged toads from the stone box. Dragon Chi plus 2500. Another 2500 points of dragon energy came into the account. Su Chen also felt a wave of relief in her heart. At this point, the dragon chi has reached at least 6,500 points, which is enough to strengthen one's own strength. But don't worry yet. Let's take a look at this three-legged toad first. The symbolism of this three-legged toad is not small, just this modeling technique is extremely impressive, and the overall design is extremely perfect. Speaking of styling techniques alone, I'm afraid it's just an excellent handicraft. Not to mention, the three-legged toad in front of us is still a product of the pre-Qin era, and it is only known to Su Chen. This three-legged toad. Its material is made from extraterrestrial meteorites. It is also a true artifact, and at this point, Su Chen threw it into the system space, where the golden toad summoned wealth and treasures. It can be placed in one's own antique shop. Use it to attract wealth and treasure for oneself. After Su Chen put these three-legged golden toads in his bag, he simultaneously instructed, open the system panel for a long time. Mountain and Sea Descent System Host. Su Chen, currently bound to divine beasts. White Tiger, awakened, Green Dragon, not fully awakened, plus, Dragon Chi. 6,500, System Space. 100 cubic meters, item. White Emperor Gung Gold Sword, Little God Blade. Strengthen the Green Dragon for me. After seeing that the dragon energy was sufficient, Su Chen immediately gave an order. Ding, the divine beast Qinglong has been strengthened. I saw the blue dragon tattoo running across Su Chen's shoulder, which was about to come out, and there were still a lot of clouds and rain slowly gathering around him. Xizhang moves the clouds and spreads the rain. Consume 6,000 points of dragon energy. Strengthen the green dragon. You have obtained a special ability to wield the power of thunder and lightning. After hearing these words, Su Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. The most valuable tattoo of this green dragon at this time is like this, which is the power of thunder and lightning in the palm. Su Chen didn't dare to think about it before. I didn't expect to finally come now. Although I also spent a full 6,000 points of dragon energy here, it is obvious that the consumption of dragon energy is also worth it. Su Chen gave it a try. I just feel like in my own mind, I can pull the power of heaven and earth and land a thunderous divine punishment. But it's not needed for now. This can be considered my big move. After the burial of King Xian, it is not too late to use it. After Su Chen closed the system interface and cleaned up these three-legged toads and others, the chubby guy was already starting to salvage the shattered golden mask in the river. That big bug just now. Su Chen's belly shattered with a punch, and the golden mask covering his face shattered at this moment. The fat man was painfully searching for the remnants of these shattered golden masks in the river. Simultaneously placed in the snake skin pocket. After the chubby guy finished packing up, Su Chen threw the hovercraft back into the river and was about to call on the Hupang brothers, as well as Shirley Yang and the others. On the way to the depths of this tomb. Suddenly recognize. Wow, wow. I only heard a burst of baby crying, which suddenly echoed through this gourd hole. There was already some silence in this gourd cave, and at the same time, in this quiet gourd cave, there was only a burst of baby crying, which echoed repeatedly. Appearing extremely permeable. The Hupang brothers looked at each other and then followed the cry of the baby. I saw the bodies that had washed ashore before, and now in my belly, there was a baby crying. Chapter 8 Hernial Babies. Cruel and poisonous hernial surgery in southern Yunnan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Accompanied by the crying of babies in this gourd hole. Among the female corpses washed ashore from the side, all of them had broken limbs and were holding a yellow hernia-shaped object on their backs. At this moment, accompanied by crying. From these yellow hernia egg-shaped things, only a half-human and half-insect thing can be seen, slowly breaking out from this hernia egg. After this thing comes out of the hernia egg, there is still a special kind of mucus sticking to the body, which looks extremely disgusting. Its overall shape is somewhat irregular. The head is a worm-like creature with no facial features, but rather a four-petal mouthpiece. The lower body is a human body, slowly crawling up to Shirley Yang's legs. This sudden scene surprised everyone present, including Shirley Yang. There was an indescribable terror in Shirley Yang's eyes, as this half-human, half-insect thing was already terrifying, especially in his way of coming out. Surprisingly, it looks like a baby. For women, this made Shirley Yang tremble to the extreme. This crooked, half-human, half-insect guy slowly crawled up to Zueliang's side and hugged her thigh. Immediately after, I saw his head cracking open directly from the middle. This is a four-petal mouthpiece, ready to bite towards Shirley Yang's thigh. Shit! Su Chen stabbed the sick baby with a sword and then nailed him to the ground. Looking at this terrifying thing, even Zueliang, who had always been strong, felt a little scared at this moment and said with a slightly pale face, "Old Su, what exactly is this thing?" "Hernial baby," Su Chen said calmly. The method of making hernia babies is essentially a type of surgical procedure, but the process of making them is the most brutal and frightening. I want to create a creature called a sick baby. We need to search for these ignorant girls who have not yet given birth, and then capture them and twist their limbs. And then while they were still alive, on their bodies, a kind of hot resin is cast, which is essentially the yellow hernia eggs carried by their hands on their backs. At the same time, they forcefully pulled out their zigong and inserted a hernia into zigong, then completely sealed it with hot pine resin. This is the process of making hernia babies. During this process, these young girls are definitely not as good as dead and will generate a lot of resentment. The root cause of symptomatic surgery. It is believed that the human soul is a medium, and the greater one's resentment, the greater the power of hernia surgery. Therefore, after these young girls were tortured and died tragically, their resentment, including resentment, self-pity, and other emotions, will surely persist for thousands of years. Gathered into this hernia egg. To cultivate this kind of monster. This method of making hernia babies simply sounds strange and even chilling. It's hard to imagine. More than 2,000 years ago in the area of Zhelong Mountain, King Xian was so ruthless that he almost killed off tens of thousands of local girls and produced this kind of hernia egg to guard his royal tomb. At this moment, accompanied by Su Chen's killing of the first hernia baby, the next sound of crying was like pulling a switch. A series of sounds rang out one after another. Among these dead bodies, a large number of hernia babies sprouted up like mushrooms after rain. "I'll go." After hearing Su Chen's explanation at this moment, the faces of the Hu Pang brothers, including Shueli and Yang, all changed greatly. After seeing so many dead floats and hernia babies breaking out of eggs. Especially the Hu Pang brothers, holding up their Chicago typewriters, immediately started shooting at the hernia babies in front of them. After Su Chen killed 2 hernia babies in succession. Then he frowned and shouted, "Old Hu, fat guy, there are too many hernia babies. First, use the earth cannon, and then use the flame gun to make the way." "Okay." Hu Pang and his 2 brothers nodded and agreed. At the same time, the chubby man cursed beside him, "Yeah, this dog days King Xian is simply losing his humanity. It's a bit human-like." Surprisingly, such a despicable act was done. "When I find the body of this old Zongzi, I will have to unload 8 pieces for Gouri." While speaking, the Hu Pang brothers quickly set up the earthen cannons in the river channel. Boom! After the earth cannon was set up, there was a loud explosion. The earth cannon made by Ma Bolan and others still had some power. After it exploded with a loud bang, along with the waves in the river, it raised a very high layer. Su Chen quickly stepped forward. Immediately after, he jumped onto the hovercraft and, taking advantage of the moment, the earth cannon blasted open a road. He shouted, "Old Hu, fat man, let the flame gun go." "Yes." After hearing this, the Hu Pang brothers, without any hesitation, He took out his flame gun from his body and stood on the hovercraft, spraying out 2 intertwined flames. These 2 flames intertwined with each other, quickly burning the Hernia baby in this river to death. Accompanied by the death of Hernia infants in this river channel. The hovercraft slid rapidly, and the group quickly headed towards the end of the Gourd cave, while also being in the river behind it. Although the earth cannon is paired with a flame gun, a few people fought their way out. But you can still hear the sound of a large number of baby cries coming from behind. It makes people shudder. It's hard to imagine. In this river, how many girls did King Xian kill here to make this Hernia baby? Su Chen is sitting on an air cushion boat. After quickly arriving at the end of this Gourd cave with the Hu Peng brothers. Finally, a glimmer of sky appeared before my eyes, and at the same time, I saw a huge waterfall that was falling vertically. Su Chen and others quickly arrived at the entrance of this Gourd cave. After grabbing the hanging vines and some giant rocks here. This has stabilized my figure. But the scenery that immediately appeared before me was simply astonishing to the extreme. In front of me was a large enclosed valley. In the valley, a huge waterfall slopes down from the entrance of this Gourd cave, and below is a huge deep pool, along with an ancient boardwalk. At the end of this ancient boardwalk in front of me, I saw cliffs and rocks, piled up together, and at the end, I saw a poor and prosperous Yangong Wang Tower. Surprisingly, it was suspended above the clouds and neon lights. At the same time, under the clouds and neon lights, there are some water vapor that evaporates in the mid-air from the waterfall. Under the sunlight, it is simply colorful, presenting a rainbow of 7 colors. This is the true cloud-top heavenly palace. At this time, the fat man on the side shouted. My God, Lao Hu, Mr. Su, Chief of Staff Yang, look, Xian Wang, an old Zongzi, really built his tomb in the sky. Yeah, why don't you bury the old Zongzi and build the moon? The immortal palace in front of me, suspended above the clouds, is magnificent and magnificent, with Qin bricks and Han tiles, imposing and magnificent. It is truly admirable for its grandeur. Shirley Yang, who was standing beside her, grabbed a vine and said, Old Hu, fat man, old Su, take a look. This palace is not really built in the sky. But it was a visual error. Follow what Shirley Yang said and look around. Sure enough, that's right. The heavenly palace of King Xian is essentially a large wedge-shaped building, built entirely on the opposite cliff. It's just the unique Feng Shui terrain of this water faucet halo. Transforming a large amount of water vapor into a rainbow of colors, it was lifted in mid-air. Looking up at this moment, the rainbow lifted by this water vapor is like a palace of offerings suspended in mid-air. Go ahead and take a look before we talk. Underneath the large wedge-shaped building in front of me are 2 ancient boardwalks that lead all the way to the wedge-shaped building above. As Su Chen spoke, he jumped onto this ancient plank road. Mr. Su, what should we do with these Hernia babies behind us? Hu Ba asked beside him. Don't be afraid. Su Chen said, this is the tomb of the King Xian. Anyone in this tomb must have a broken worm path. These are. A Hernia baby cannot pass through, go ahead and take a look before we talk. After hearing this, the Hu Peng brothers nodded and followed Su Chen to the top of the plank road. Behind her is Shirley Yang. Above this ancient plank road, there are 2 passages in total, one of which breaks and leads to the deep pool below. Su Chen knows. Beneath this deep pool, in essence, is the real tomb of Xian Wang, the old Zongzi. The fairy palace above is actually just a sacrifice to Soul Tower. However, there are also many treasures in this sacrificial Soul Tower, which can't be missed. Now, with Hu Peng and Shuiliang, they came to the top. The boardwalk in front of me. As we walked higher and higher, the end was a staircase made of 90.9 steps of white jade, leading all the way to the highest palace of the Xian Wang. At this time, I walked on the stairs made of white marble. On both sides of this staircase, there were colorful mist resembling clouds, and everyone dispersed in one place. At the end is the immortal palace of King Xian. At this moment, everyone seemed to have truly become immortals, stepping on the white jade steps and heading towards the clouds at the end, lightly touching the clouds beside them. It will dissipate. Many people smiled foolishly. Around this white jade staircase, we arrived at the end. I saw a huge square paved with large white stone bricks, and at the end of the square was this immortal palace, with a huge threshold and still a tall entrance. Beside the immortal palace, it is a qualitative stone beast, carrying a stone tablet on its back. On the stone tablet, there were 4 big characters written in a dance of dragons and phoenixes. Lingyun Immortal Palace. The ancient seal script of dragons flying and phoenixes dancing is truly magnificent. Combined with the majestic immortal palace in front of us, it is even more impressive. Chapter 9. Lingyun Immortal Palace, offering the king's throne, overlooking thousands. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey! Xian Wang, the old Zongzi, really knows how to play. Lingyun Immortal Palace, does the old man still think that the gods in the sky will come down and play chess with him and drink tea? Fat man took an engineer shovel nearby, knocked on the stone tablet and scolded. The old Zongzi also wants to become an immortal, which drives me crazy. But this Liao killed so many people. Even if such people can become immortals, I think they are also evil immortals. Hu Ba ignored him. Lao Hu is right, Su nodded in the morning. Shirley Yang was holding a digital camera and taking photos of the seal script here, including the magnificent palace in front of her. Su Chen stepped forward. Bang! Kicked open the thick door in front of me. The palace in front of me was adorned with various patterns carved on the thick gate, which made Su Chen kick open a gap with 1 foot. The cracked gap. A ray of sunshine shot into it. This immortal palace has been around for at least 2,000 years, and no one has entered it yet. I didn't expect that the first person to come here was not a deity, or a descendant who offered sacrifices to the king. But it's Su Chen and the others who are trying to make money and unload mountains. I don't know what the old Zongzi Xianwang would think. After kicking open the door, Su Chen dodged and stepped into the crack of the door. On both sides of the door, there were 2 bronze figures and beasts arranged all the way to the back. These bronze beasts are first arranged in front of each other. There are 2 bronze lions, and the male lion steps on a stone ball, symbolizing a sense of contempt for all things and stepping on the universe. The female lion on the opposite side is stepping on a little lion, symbolizing the blessing of offspring and the meaning of having more children and more blessings. Immediately behind these 2 lions, it is a continuous series of bronze beasts, stretching all the way to the end, including different divine beasts such as horses, elephants, and so on. At the same time at the end, I saw 18 bronze figures, each carved into the image of a civil and military minister, kneeling on the ground, all guarding the deepest throne of the entire palace. This card face, tut tut tut. The fat man held the wolf-eye flashlight and said, "Yeah, the old Zongzi who offered the king will be late. He wants to be the emperor when he dies. Yeah, this grass-headed king, why does he rely on it?" As the chubby man spoke, Su Chen held a wolf-eyed flashlight and arrived at the end of the way, shining on the throne in front of him. Then he said, "Let's go take a look first. Mr. Su, you said that the body of the old Zongzi king should be lying on the throne, the old thing." The fat man said, "Probably not." Hu Ba analyzed the whole underground palace and said, "This is just a soul tower, not the real tomb now. In order to present the king's personality, the body must be buried in the deepest part of the tomb. Let's find out if there is any clue." Speaking, follow Su Chen. It has already come to an end. Before the throne, there is a golden pool. In this golden pool, the water has long dried up, and you can notice some rotten koi corpses and some small boats. It looks like If you wanted to go there before, you still need to walk on a boat. The old Zongzi, Xian Wang, will be a little late. Su Chen and others didn't care much about stepping on the boat. At this moment, they jumped directly into the dry golden pool and then followed it towards the opposite throne. Under the wolf-eyed flashlight, you can notice. The throne in front of me is entirely made of pure gold, with a large amount of jade inlaid on it. Especially on the far left, there is a lifelike hollow mercury dragon. The craftsmanship level of this throne is very high. At this moment, Su Chen jumped up and climbed up, then looked over with a wolf-eyed flashlight. The throne, made of pure gold, has a high level of craftsmanship value, especially the hollow mercury dragon embedded on the adjacent throne. It has only been crafted in half. The hollow mercury dragon is carved to life, and at this point, the latter part of the body has completely penetrated into the mural. In this mural. Next, the front half of the hollow mercury dragon's body was depicted. Soar into the clouds. On the hollow mercury dragon head above this mural, a middle-aged man wearing a black dragon robe is depicted. This man has a calm and imposing demeanor, and he has a small black beard with 3 curls on his chin. Wearing a black headband. Above its crown, there is also a swirling object. Obviously, it is the electric dust bead that the trio has been searching for in this arduous journey. Hu Ba held a wolf-eyed flashlight and looked at the mural of King Xian in front of him, saying, "I thought people like King Xian must have an extremely cruel appearance. I didn't expect this tusk to look so easy-going." The chubby man on the side said, "Old Hu, I think you have a mental problem. This old thing is obviously putting gold on your face, can't you tell?" Seeing the two of them fighting again, Su Chen also reluctantly spread out his hand and then touched the throne from the side. Dragon Chi plus 2000. This trip to King Xian's tomb is also worth it, there are really many treasures. Su Chen incorporated this throne into the system space, which was made of pure gold, along with the inlaid gold and jade, as well as the hollow mercury dragon. They are definitely valuable treasures. After bringing it back, one's assets can greatly increase. After Su Chen put these things away, Hu Pang and his 2 brothers looked enviously at Su Chen's methods, and then followed Su Chen as they groped towards the back hall. There is only one throne in this front hall. It's just worth some money. The other things are all some floor tiles, bronze people, bronze beasts, and so on. These tomb beasts are too large to be wanted by anyone, let alone the heavy yin energy, which is not good for them to be displayed in antique shops. Su Chen didn't move either. After bringing the Hu Pang brothers to this rear hall. In the back hall, there is also a plaque hanging above it, with the 3 big characters of dragon flying and phoenix dancing. Huixian Pavilion. After stepping into it, the entire rear hall is even darker. It looks a bit gloomy. In the back hall, there is a huge circular 6-legged cauldron displayed, with almost no decorations on the surface, and the whole body is pitch black like ink. Almost hidden in dark corners. At this moment, under the illumination of the wolf's eye flashlight, the full picture of this huge black 6-legged round tripod can be discovered. At the same time, next to these 6-legged round tripods, you can also see some murals painted on the adjacent walls. On these murals, they depict the things of singing praises for the old Zongzi, Xian Wang, but also the role of the black 6-legged round tripod in front of them. This black 6-legged round tripod. At the time of offering the king, it was used for worshipping the heavens and cooking corpses. On the mural, it is depicted that the King Xian, dressed in a black dragon robe, will come to this Lingyun immortal palace after achieving enlightenment and becoming an immortal. Open the black copper cauldron in front of you personally. Then, with flames, thoroughly cook the body inside the black cauldron, allowing the body inside to be used as a sacrifice to heaven. This situation. Don't say anything else. The patterns depicted on this mural alone make people shudder. The fat man on the side looked at the content depicted on the bronze cauldron above the mural, and then said on the sidelines, "I said Suyi, Lao Hu, Chief of Staff Yang. This Wang Zhenting Yang is just a pervert." This grandson praises his merits and even depicts himself cooking corpses. It seems that in the eyes of these feudal emperors, the lives of these common people are almost like ants and grass. Su Chen stepped forward and touched the surface of this six-legged round cauldron. Dragon Chi plus 1,000, another 1,000 points of dragon energy is coming in. This six-legged round cauldron, although an evil artifact for cooking corpses, is at least within the category of antiques. It's not surprising. After absorbing the dragon energy from the round cauldron, Su Chen immediately groped on the wall for a while. Bang! Above this wall, in one of the areas. It is indeed hollow. After Su Chen knocked open the hollow brick, he could see a purple gold box containing something inside. Su Chen grabbed it in his hand. In this purple gold box, what is actually contained is another Dragon Bone Heavenly Book. The Dragon Bone Heavenly Book was introduced earlier. There are two pieces of this thing, one of which is the shape of an electric dust bead and its destination. It has already been found by Su Chen. Another piece. This is the usage of the electric dust bead, which is the one in the Xianhuan underground palace. After Su Chen held it in his palm. Dragon Chi plus 1600 previously, whether it was the Dragon Bone Heavenly Book from Longling Mysterious Cave or other Dragon Bone Heavenly Books, it was clearly only half of it. The whole thing in front of me. It happens to be 1,600 points of dragon energy. Su Chen felt a sense of joy in her heart. Immediately after, he also took the other piece of dragon bone, the Heavenly Book, into his arms. The exploration of the rear hall has been almost completed, and Su Chen and others are planning to leave. Gaga gaga. Suddenly at this moment. In the underground palace of this rear hall, a sharp and piercing laughter came out from the empty fairy palace. This voice is incredibly penetrating. It's like something emitted by a ghost. And it's laughter. You should know that there are often two situations with ghosts like Li Gui. The first is crying, and the second is laughing. But as the saying goes, ghost laughter is like listening to ghosts cry. Any ghost that can smile is definitely a truly ferocious ghost. This is something that can be eaten by choosing someone, extremely terrifying. At this moment, suddenly in this immortal palace, upon hearing the laughter of the evil spirits, Su Chen and others were taken aback. Hu Ba, standing aside, said, "Mr. Su, did you hear anything?" "Damn it, it shouldn't be haunted, right?" "I'll go," said the fat man on the side. Chapter 10. Red-Clothed Corpse, Tung-gu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the field of flipping, there have always been these sentences circulating in essence. As the saying goes, the red clothes are fierce, the smiling face is corpse, and the ghost smile is like listening to the ghost's cry. This was what Chen Blind told Su Chen and others back then, and now hearing this ghostly laughter is truly chilling. The fat man was shaking his flashlight beside him, and couldn't help but curse, "Yeah, what kind of monsters and monsters dare to come out and let you eat Fat Lord's black donkey hooves?" Speaking, he shook his black donkey hooves around. Just at this moment. Gaga gaga. This piercing and sharp sound rang out once again. This piercing laughter, with an indescribable shrewdness and a sense of strangeness, seemed like a cat, looking down at the mouse below, playing. It's a sudden jump in people's hearts. And the sound was clearly coming from the heads of the crowd. Su Chen and others held flashlights and shot upwards, following the source of the sharp and piercing laughter, above the underground palace above their heads. One of its crossbeams. Hanging is an empty red robe. The clothes were so empty that even the limbs and body could not be found. At this moment, they were still drifting in mid-air with the wind. This scene. It makes the scalp explode. The fat man was still somewhat skeptical, holding a wolf-eyed flashlight and shining it towards the top of the red-clothed clothes. I saw it above the bright red clothing. It can be noticed that there is a ferocious, blood-stained woman's head, with her back to them, and sharp giggles are emitted from the mouth of this woman's head. Gaga gaga. After the wolf-eyed flashlight shone on the woman's head, accompanied by piercing laughter, the woman's head seemed to have noticed them, and at this moment her head slowly twisted. This is the face. At this moment, under the illumination of the wolf-eyed flashlight, his true face appeared. I saw a woman with a pale face like a piece of white paper, like a piece of paper stabbing people. There was a bright red powder blusher on her cheeks. Especially on the lips, they are incredibly bright red. At this moment, floating in mid-air, through the bright red clothing, I watched them burst out with sharp laughter. What kind of demons and monsters eat Mr. Who's black donkey hooves? After seeing the sudden appearance of the red-clothed female corpse above their heads, everyone couldn't help but be startled. Ba suddenly realized it and threw the black donkey hooves in his hand directly at the red-clothed female corpse in mid-air. But this time, it seemed as if it had been thrown into the air, with no movement at all. Old Hu, black donkey hooves are used to suppress zombies and have no effect on ghosts and monsters, Su Chen said beside him. The red-clothed female corpse in front of me. Although it may seem terrifying, Su Chen knows. In the original work, it's just an old zongzi, named Xian Wang, which is set up here as a scary mechanism. The female corpse's mouth contains a tongue poison. Su Chen thought of this. Pull out the small divine blade from your waist. Shoo. Xiao Shenfeng flew out and flashed a cold light, followed by the fishing line hanging from the crossbeam above the red-clothed female corpse, which instantly broke. When the corpse of the woman in red should have fallen. Just at this moment, the corpse of the woman in red suddenly disappeared in mid-air. Su Chen. Could it be that the red-clothed female corpse has really turned into a demon? After thinking about this, Su Chen's heart tightened. Just then, Shirley Yang in front of her suddenly shouted, "Old Su, behind your back." Gaga gaga. From behind, as if holding your head and pouring yourself a bowl of cold water. I saw the corpse of the woman in red suddenly appear behind me. Without hesitation, Su Chen took off the white Emperor Gung gold sword bound on his back and immediately cut it directly behind his back. Sure enough, the corpse of the woman in red appeared behind her. At this moment, two sharp claws came out and directly grabbed the sword that Su Chen had swung over. At the same time, after blocking Su Chen's blow, a ferocious head was seen poking out directly from the empty red clothing of the red-clothed female corpse. This head presents 4 lobes, split directly from the middle. Inside were dense judgments, heading toward Su Chen to gnaw and bite. What monster? Su Chen punched the monster's mouth in front of him. Qinglong Jin. Take this punch down. This monster directly caused Su Chen to smash out of the big red clothing. I saw that this guy was a relatively large hernia baby, and it was this thing that just penetrated into the clothes of the red-clothed female corpse, which caused the situation in front of me. Boom. Let Su Chen's green dragon energy hit him directly. This hernia baby didn't even have a chance to make a scream and had completely died in place. Su Chen is also too lazy to care about him. After the hernia baby died, the red-clothed female corpse's bright red clothing also fell to the ground. A dead head also fell to the side. Fatty guy, burn this thing and leave it to you to handle. Lao Hu, Chief of Staff Yang, it seems that this electric dust bead is not here. Let's go down and take a look. Just now, there were 2 ancient boardwalks in total. One leads to the sacrificial soul tower, and the other leads to the deep pool. I think the real tomb of Xian Wang is under the deep pool. Okay. Hu Pang brothers, including Shirley and Yang, quickly nodded. Following Su Chen's instructions, I followed her closely. The fat man was picking up the body of the female corpse from behind, while Hu Bai and Shirley Yang followed Su Chen towards the outside of the Immortal Palace. Su Chen knows the temperament of the chubby old boy. As he ran out, he shouted, "Commander Wang, don't randomly pick up some rags for me. Clean up and merge as soon as possible." "Don't worry, Marshal Su," the chubby man shouted. "Just left this fairy palace." At this point, the sky outside had already changed completely. Originally, the weather in Worm Valley was still clear and cloudless. At this time, the entire interior of Worm Valley was filled with large black clouds, which had already gathered in the sky above. In the sky above this insect valley, at the end, a black cloud appeared like a black dragon at the far end. "Old Hu, Marshal Su, complete the task." The fat man shouted and then looked at the sky across from him, saying, "Hee, this is the Dragon Prince shining his wings." "Fatty guy, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. This weather is not something like the Dragon King shining his wings. It's called the Black Pig crossing the river, and in the Qinggu Classic, it's also called the Rain Marquis Adventure. Whenever this weather occurs, it indicates that there must be a 1,000-year-old ancient corpse causing trouble in this tomb." Hu Ba explained. "A 1,000-year-old corpse." The fat man heard the words and said, "Maybe it's not the old Zongzi that offered the king." "Yeah. If it were that old man Xian Wang, I would have to give him 2 big mouths," the fat man said indignantly. "It's hard to say what it is," Su Chen said on the side. The millennium-old corpse in the tomb of King Xian, washed away by the Earth's atmosphere, is essentially a huge aconite coffin, also known as the Tai Sui. Extremely terrifying. At this moment, Su Chen asked everyone to change into diving suits on this cliff. The sky in front of us had completely darkened, and we could only see one explosion after another in the sky. The black sky in the entire Worm Valley is like the bottom of a pot. The visibility is already extremely low. Su Chen kicked a soft ladder to the bottom of the cliff. Then, wearing a diving suit, he climbed up the cliff and headed towards the bottom. The Hu Pang brothers behind, including Shui and Yang, also followed Su Chen and quickly jumped down the soft ladder into the deep pool below the cliff. Puff. After jumping into the deep pool, Su Chen and others took out the prepared Poseidon Xian from their bodies and shone it on the water environment below. I saw it in the entire deep pool. A grand building appeared in front of several people. In the deep pool in front of me, there is a dragon-shaped building that winds from the bottom of the pool, where the dragon's head is located, all the way to the top. At the top, there is also a huge dragon claw, dragon scale, and so on, which is simply a must-have. It's hard to imagine. Xian Wang, an old Zongzi, unexpectedly built such a dragon-shaped building for himself under this deep pool. We're professional diving equipment. Su Chen and others quickly infiltrated into the deep pool. At the bottom of this deep pool, at the winding mouth of the dragon, there is a huge blue-gray broken dragon stone lying before my eyes. Next to it are 2 eerie-shaped, giant tomb beasts. Su Chen, along with the Hu Pang brothers and Shui Yang, quickly sneaked down to the bottom and saw a mechanism next to the broken dragon stone in front of him. It seems to be a pattern of 9 palaces and 8 trigrams. This mechanism was handed over to Hu Ba to crack. Old Hu also lived up to expectations. After casually flicking the mechanism in front of him twice, it was quickly opened. Before my eyes, I could only see a series of mechanism sounds, followed by the sound. Boom boom. The broken dragon stone in front of me has already been opened along with it. Inside is a water-filled tomb passage, which presents an upward-sloping posture. There are also some murals on both sides, as well as scattered tomb beasts. Su Chen and others are too lazy to read too much. After climbing a bag of cigarettes, I walked around this tomb passage directly. Finally, it surfaced with it. Just as Su Chen and others had just surfaced, they suddenly heard the chubby man behind them, emitting a strange and piercing laughter. This eerie sharp laughter. It's just like the corpse of the woman in red just sent out. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion in this tomb chamber, making people feel hairy all over. The chubby man seemed to have noticed and quickly covered his mouth, his eyes filled with fear. "Commander Wang, have you secretly picked up some junk again, kid? Be honest." Su Chen shouted. "This Wang fatty is not right." The fat man covered his mouth and was about to say something. "Ga ga ga." A piercing and sharp laughter erupted from the chubby man's mouth again, and then he pushed Hu Bai away, already heading towards the depths of the tomb passage.